Good evening, and welcome to Critical Context. Tonight, we delve into a deeply divisive issue that is sparking heated debates in communities across the nation: the removal of books from public and school library shelves. This is not a simple argument, but rather a complex intersection of two cherished values: the profound desire to protect children and the foundational principle of intellectual freedom. To explore this topic, we are joined by two distinguished guests. Mr. David Chen represents a national parents coalition, advocating for what they call responsible curation of library collections. And Ms. Eleanor Vance is a veteran librarian and a passionate advocate for the freedom to read. Welcome to you both. We will begin with opening statements. Mr. Chen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. I want to begin by clarifying the position of the families I represent. Our goal is not banning books, a term I find both inflammatory and inaccurate. Instead, we advocate for responsible, transparent, and community-driven curation of library materials. This is about ensuring that publicly funded institutions are suitable for all their patrons, especially the youngest and most impressionable. The core of our argument rests on two pillars: parental rights and child protection. Parents have the fundamental right and responsibility to guide their children's education and development. When a library makes sexually explicit or graphically violent material readily accessible in a children's or young adult section, it can undermine that right. We are not suggesting that teenagers should be shielded from all difficult topics. However, the introduction to themes of intense violence, sexual content, or drug abuse should be managed by a parent, not presented without context to any child who happens to wander into that section of the library. Furthermore, public libraries are funded by taxpayers. They have a duty to reflect the standards of the community they serve. This isn't about one group imposing its morality. It's about finding a reasonable balance that serves the majority while protecting vulnerable children. When dozens of parents in a community raise concerns about a specific book, the library has an obligation to listen and take those concerns seriously. Our proposed solution is not to erase these books from existence. It's about placement and context. A book with mature themes may be perfectly appropriate for the adult section, but entirely inappropriate for the young adult shelves. The process for reviewing challenged materials should be clear, transparent, and involve a committee of librarians, parents, and community members. This is a common-sense approach to ensure our libraries remain safe, enriching, and age-appropriate spaces for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Ms. Vance, your opening statement.
Thank you. Mr. Chen uses the term curation, but we must be perfectly clear. When you remove a book from a library because a group objects to its content, you are engaging in censorship. It is a gentler word for the same harmful act. The public library is not a bookstore, which caters to commercial tastes. It is a cornerstone of our democracy, a place built on the principle of free and unfettered access to information and ideas. Its primary mission is to make the entire spectrum of human thought and experience available to everyone, regardless of their background or beliefs. This includes ideas that are popular, unpopular, comforting, and, yes, even challenging or disturbing. This leads to the critical question at the heart of this debate: who decides what is inappropriate? Mr. Chen speaks of community standards, but communities are not monolithic. The standards of a vocal minority should not dictate what the entire community is allowed to read. Allowing one group to remove books they dislike sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. This is the slippery slope of censorship. Today, the target might be a book with LGBTQ+ characters, or themes of racial injustice. Tomorrow, it could be a book on evolutionary science, a political memoir, or a classic novel that someone, somewhere, finds offensive. Finally, books are windows to the world and mirrors of our own lives. Shielding young people from difficult realities does not protect them. It leaves them unprepared for a complex world. Reading about experiences different from their own builds empathy, critical thinking, and resilience. A book about poverty, discrimination, or war can be a powerful tool for understanding. To deny a young person that tool is a profound disservice. The responsibility to guide a child's reading belongs to that child's parents. A parent has every right to decide what their child can or cannot read, but they do not have the right to make that decision for other people's children. The library must serve everyone.
Thank you both for your compelling opening statements. Let's move into our discussion. Mr. Chen, I'd like to start with you. Ms. Vance raises the slippery slope argument. How can you guarantee that a system of removing books, even with the best intentions, won't be abused to silence minority voices or perspectives that are simply unpopular with a vocal segment of the community?
That is a valid concern, Dr. Reed, and it's one that we can address through process and principle. The guarantee against abuse lies in a transparent, well-defined, and fair review policy. This isn't about a simple majority vote, or yielding to the loudest voices. A proper review committee should be diverse, including librarians, educators, parents, and even students where appropriate. The criteria for review must be narrow and specific, focusing on demonstrably age-inappropriate content like graphic violence or sexually explicit descriptions, rather than on ideas or themes. The objective is not to evaluate whether an idea is popular, but whether the presentation of that idea is appropriate for the intended age group in a public, unsupervised setting. It's a scalpel, not an axe.
Ms. Vance, what is your reaction to that? Can a sufficiently detailed process protect against the slippery slope?
No, I don't believe it can. Because no matter how many rules you create, the initial impetus for the review comes from an objection to the book's content. The entire process is founded on the premise that an idea is too dangerous for someone to encounter freely. Furthermore, the very terms sexually explicit or graphically violent are subjective. What one person finds to be a necessary depiction of historical trauma, another will call gratuitously violent. What one sees as a frank and honest discussion of adolescent sexuality, another will label as obscene. These review boards, however well-intentioned, become tribunals of taste and opinion. The only truly objective policy is to trust the professional judgment of librarians who select the books, and the personal judgment of patrons who read them.
Let me turn to you then, Ms. Vance. Mr. Chen's argument focuses heavily on age appropriateness. While parents guide their own children, don't librarians have a professional duty of care to ensure the material in a space designated for children is, in fact, suitable for children?
Absolutely, we have a professional duty of care. But we must define what that duty entails. Our duty is to curate a diverse and comprehensive collection that serves the needs of every child in the community, not just a select few. A child who is questioning their identity deserves to find books that reflect their experience. A child from a troubled home might find solace and understanding in a story that addresses difficult family dynamics. Our duty of care is fulfilled by providing resources, not by restricting them. It involves guiding a child or parent to the right book for them, which is a positive act of professional service. It is fundamentally different from the negative act of removing a book so that no child can access it. That is not care. It is control.
Mr. Chen, a follow-up for you. Many challenged books prominently feature LGBTQ+ or racial minority characters. Critics claim these challenges are less about explicit content and more about discomfort with the subject matter itself. How do you ensure that community standards doesn't become a code for excluding diverse narratives?
This is a serious accusation, and I believe it is a mischaracterization of the motives of most concerned parents. The issue is, and always must be, about content, not identity. A book should be evaluated on its merits and its age appropriateness, regardless of the character's race, religion, or sexual orientation. A story with a heterosexual couple that contains sexually explicit material would be just as inappropriate for a children's section as a story with a same-sex couple. the review process I described must include safeguards against discrimination. The question on the table should never be, should we have a book about this type of person? But rather, is this specific book, as written, appropriate for this specific age group? We must be vigilant to ensure the conversation stays focused on that distinction.
Finally, Ms. Vance. Libraries operate on limited budgets and cannot acquire every book. A selection process is inherent. How is the professional decision to not purchase a book fundamentally different from the decision to deselect a book that the community has raised significant concerns about?
That is an excellent and crucial question. The difference is one of principle and process. Acquisition, or initial selection, is a professional, proactive task. Librarians survey the vast landscape of published works and select a small fraction based on criteria like literary merit, accuracy, authoritativeness, and relevance to the community's needs. It is an act of inclusion, of building a collection. Deselection, based on content challenges, on the other hand, is a reactive process. It is an act of exclusion. It does not start with professional criteria, but with public pressure to remove an idea or viewpoint that is already part of the library's collection. One is about building a balanced resource within budgetary limits. The other is about dismantling that resource in response to ideological objections. They are fundamentally different actions.
We are nearing the end of our time. I will now ask each of you for a brief closing statement. Mr. Chen, please begin.
Thank you. This debate should not be framed as freedom versus censorship. It is about balance, responsibility, and common sense. Our public libraries should be partners with parents in raising thoughtful, well-adjusted children. That means ensuring materials are genuinely age-appropriate. A transparent review process that respects community standards and protects parental rights is not an attack on freedom. It is a defense of childhood. Our libraries can and must be both intellectually vibrant and safe.
Thank you. Ms. Vance, your closing statement.
The freedom to read is a right we must guard with vigilance. Every time we allow a book to be removed from a shelf, we weaken the foundation of our democratic ideals. The library must remain a place of open inquiry, not a battleground for ideological purity. Censorship, no matter how well-intentioned, ultimately harms us all by limiting our understanding of the world and of each other. Let us trust our librarians, our fellow citizens, and our children to navigate the world of ideas freely and thoughtfully.
My thanks to both Mr. Chen and Ms. Vance for a powerful and respectful discussion. Tonight has highlighted the enduring tension between two vital imperatives: the responsibility to protect our children and the right to access information freely. We hope this conversation encourages you to engage with this important issue in your own communities. Good evening.